I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised. FBI releases Finder's files after 3 decades. Declassified investigation linked the Tallahassee child abuse case. Federal agents concluded there was no evidence of criminal activity and dropped the case against the Finders. It would have been swept into the annals of the FBI case history, except for a Stuart, Florida resident named Skip Clements, who had been researching the Finders for years. He claimed the U.S. Customs Service called off the investigation at behest of the CIA, which he said was using the commune as a front to train agents. He even convinced at least 2 members of Congress to look into it, and it sparked a Justice Department investigation. Both congressmen have since died. Another document said a customs agent who asked to review evidence in the case was told it was a CIA internal matter. First off, thanks to Ben's Muircroft and Majestic Angel for helping me look into this stuff. It's a very complex case, as you may know. To save time, and because it's done so well, instead of me reading a backstory, I used a clip from a book called Operation Mind Control by Walter H. Ballard. So check this out.
According to a Customs Service memorandum, the CIA and FCIA, or Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, a distinct and autonomous organization within the FBI, were both involved in a mysterious group with behavior similar to the one in Nebraska. Known as the Finders, CIA ownership of this organization was kept secret for 7 years after local law enforcement uncovered its practice of child abduction, kiddie porn, ritual abuse, and slavery. In early February 1987, an anonymous tip to the Tallahassee, Florida police brought cops out like bloodhounds. The caller said 2 well-dressed men seemed to be supervising 6 disheveled and hungry children in a local park. The 2 men were identified as members of the Finders. They were charged with child abuse in Florida. The customs agents determined that the children may have been en route to Mexico from Washington, D.C. Customs had been contacted because police officers suspected the adults of being involved in child pornography, and they knew the Customs Service had a network of child pornography investigators in their Child Pornography and Protections Unit. When the customs agents came on the scene, police had 2 well-dressed white males, Douglas Edward Ammerman and James Michael Howell. The 6 children were identified with full names, but we shall use only first names since they are definitely innocent. The children were Mary, age 7, Max, age 6, Benjamin, age 4, Honeybee, age 3, BB, age 2, and John Paul, age 2. All were taken into custody. According to the customs memorandum, the children were poorly dressed, bruised, dirty, and behaving like animals in a public park in Tallahassee when they were taken into custody. The subjects were living in a white 1979 Dodge van with Virginia plates. When taken into custody, the adult white males refused to cooperate. One of them produced a business card with a name on one side and a statement on the other. The statement indicated that the bearer knew his constitutional rights to remain silent and that he intended to do so. Upon interviewing the children, the memorandum said, the police officers found that they could not adequately identify themselves or their custodians. Further, they stated they were en route to Mexico to attend a school for smart kids. The children were unaware of the function and purpose of telephones, televisions, and toilets, the memorandum said. The children stated they were not allowed to live indoors and were only given food as a reward. One wonders for what. In the van, the Tallahassee police discovered large quantities of records, computer disks, and a U.S. passport. From some of the records, the police obtained identification of the 2 adults and partial identification of the children. This led to search warrants of 2 Washington, D.C. addresses owned by the Finders Group. An informant gave the police information regarding a cult by that name, operating at various businesses, one of which was a warehouse for the children. The information was specific in describing blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and an as-yet unsolved murder in which the Finders may be involved, the memorandum said. With the information provided by the informant, detectives were able to match some of the children in Tallahassee with the names of children alleged to be in the custody of the Finders, the memorandum said. During the execution of the warrant at 3918 and 3920th West Street, the memorandum said, I was able to observe and access the entire building. I saw large quantities of children's clothing and toys. The clothing consisting of diapers and clothes in the toddler to preschool range. No children were found on the premises. There were several subjects on the premises. Only one was deemed to be connected with the Finders. Stuart Miles Silverstone was renting space to other tenants. He was located in a room equipped with several computers, printers, and numerous documents. Cursory examination of the documents revealed detailed instructions for obtaining children for unspecified purposes. The instructions included the impregnation of female members of the community known as finders, purchasing children, trading, and kidnapping. There were telex messages using MCI account numbers between a computer terminal believed to be located in the same room and others located across the country and in foreign locations. One such telex specifically ordered the purchase of 2 children in Hong Kong to be arranged through a contact in the Chinese embassy there. Another telex expressed an interest in bank secrecy situations. Other documents identified interests in high-tech transfers to the United Kingdom, numerous properties under the control of the finders, a keen interest in terrorism, explosives, and the evasion of law enforcement. Also found in the computer room was a detailed summary of the events surrounding the arrest and taking into custody of the 2 adults and 6 children in Tallahassee, Florida, on the previous night. There were also a set of instructions which appeared to be broadcast via a computer network, which advised participants to move the children and keep them moving through different jurisdictions, and instructions on how to avoid police attention. At the other Washington address, the customs agent writing the memo was again granted unlimited access to the premises. I was able to observe numerous documents which described explicit sexual conduct between the members of the community known as finders. I also saw a large collection of photographs of unidentified persons. Some of the photographs were nudes, believed to be of members of finders. There were numerous photos of children, some nude, at least one of which was a photo of a child on display and appearing to accent the child's genitals. I was only able to examine a very small amount of the photos at this time. However, one of the officers presented me with a photo album for my review. The album contained a series of photos of adults and children dressed in white sheets participating in a blood ritual. The ritual centered around the execution of at least 2 goats. The photos portrayed the execution, disembowelment, skinning, and dismemberment of the goats at the hands of the children. This included the removal of the testes of a male goat, the discovery of a female goat's womb and the baby goats inside the womb, and the presentation of a goat's head to one of the children, the memo said. Further inspection of the premises disclosed numerous files relating to activities of the organization in different parts of the world. Locations I observed are as follows: London, Germany, the Bahamas, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Africa, Costa Rica, and Europe. There was also a file identified as Palestinian. Other files were identified by member name or project name, the projects appearing to be operated for commercial purposes under front names for the finders. There was one file entitled Pentagon Break-In, and others which referred to members operating in foreign countries. Not observed by me, but related by an officer, were intelligence files on private families not related to the finders. The process undertaken appears to have been a systematic response to local newspaper advertisements for babysitters, tutors, etc. A member of the finders would respond and gather as much information as possible about the habits, identity, occupation, etc. of the family. The use to which this information was to be put is still unknown. There was also a large amount of data collected on various child care organizations. The warehouse contained a large library, 2 kitchens, a sauna, hot tub, and a video room. The video room seemed to be set up as an indoctrination center. It also appeared that the organization had the capability to produce its own videos. There were what appeared to be training areas for children and what appeared to be an altar set up in a residential area of the warehouse. Many jars of urine and feces were located in this area. I should also mention that both premises were equipped with satellite dish antennas. U.S. Customs interests, the memo concludes, now lie in the purpose behind the inquiries into bank secrecy laws, and the purpose of the organized procurement and smuggling of children across the U.S. international borders. The possibility still exists that the children are being smuggled for a primary or secondary purpose of producing child pornography. Other agencies with interest may be the Internal Revenue Service, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, and the FBI. The FBI is already involved in the investigation of the transportation of the children already discovered across state lines as it pertains to the Mann Act. In an attached memo dated April 13, 1987, the cryptocracy's secret unraveled. Referring to the previous memo by date and description, subject Finders from Special Agent, this memo reads, "I spoke to a third party who was willing to discuss the case with me on a strictly off-the-record basis. I was advised that all the passport data had been turned over to the State Department for their investigation. The State Department in turn advised Metropolitan Police Department that all travel and use of the passports by the holders of the passports was within law and no action would be taken. This included travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 1950s to mid-1970s. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated that the investigation into the activity of the finders had become a CIA internal matter. The police report has been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from the investigation several weeks prior, and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division had directed the police not to advise the FBI Washington Field Office of anything that had transpired. No further information will be available, no further action will be taken. An attached chronology points out that the CIA made one contact and admitted to owning the Finers organization as a front for a domestic computer training operation, but that it had gone bad. CIA defers all further contracts to FCIA, Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, is a distinct and autonomous organization within the FBI. The conclusion of the chronology reads, children discovered in Tallahassee were eventually turned over to individuals claiming to be parents or guardians. As far as is known, no details of CIA or FCIA involvement ever became public, was the final line of the Customs report.
The children were eventually released to their mothers. Here's 4 out of 5 of the moms, left to right. From the left, Kristen Noth, mother of Ben, 4. Judith Evans, Honeybee, 3. Paula Arrico, Mary, 7, and John Paul, 2. Carolyn Said, Phoebe, 2. And not pictured, Patricia Livingstone, son Max, 6. And here's a couple things that should be mentioned. They started investigating in December of 1986. That's why they took off with the kids. An investigation of the group began last December of 1986 with a complaint of child abuse, sexual abuse, and that it was some kind of satanic cult. But we were never able to prove any of the allegations. They were tipped off they were going to be investigated, and that's why the kids were on the road in the first place. Also worth noting is there was a hole found in the basement of the duplex in DC. Where have I heard that before? Detective Bradley expressed concern about some info from 3 sources about a hole that was discovered in the basement of the W Street house. Neighbors said a number of persons had visited the 2-story colonial-style home, saying they were looking for the Chinese embassy. They were always Oriental, said Dan Mulholland, a medical student who lives 2 doors down from the home. On one occasion, a man who was looking for the finders said that the address had been advertised in Europe as a youth hostel. Another neighbor, Nancy Wright, said a girl had come to her home and asked directions to the finder's house, but she said she had seen the address on a notice at a bus station advertising a youth hostel. Police investigator Cheryl Wygand told the Tallahassee Democrat on Saturday night that more than one of the children had been sexually abused. In Virginia, the authorities said they had completed their part of the investigation by searching 5 places in Madison County where members of the group were said to have occupied farms and homes. When they were searching the Virginia farms, they found cages for children. Some of the material seized included photos showing children involved in bloodletting ceremonies of animals and one photograph of a child in chains. Oddly enough, the finder's documents contain a couple pages referring to McMartin Preschool. First off, there's a map. The tunnels found at McMartin Preschool, a preliminary report. 45-foot tunnel. 9-foot wide subterranean entrance found under west wall of the quote dog room, classroom 4, blank classroom. Avocado tree roots cut on both sides of the entrance. Disney bag, copyright 1982, found 4.5 feet below the classroom floor, and 3 to 6 inches in from entrance and under foundation, classroom 4. Tunnel proceeded south, then east 45 feet through classroom 4 and 3, and north, then east 10 feet within classroom 4. Tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. What's that, about 2.5 by 3.5 feet or something? 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnel under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel. Tunnel features made it evident that tunnel was hand-dug. 7-foot tunnel extending into the triplex next door. Tunnel extended from the bathrooms off the office in Classroom 1 to the front yard of the triplex next door. Front yard concealed from street by 3-car garage. Children described entrance and exiting tunnel in triplex yard exactly where the tunnel and exit were found. A small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams hand-drawn on top of light green paint was found by the archaeologist in the stratified dirt in the play yard. Per historical archaeologist, pentagrams were hand-drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. No doorknobs were on Classroom 3, only a deadbolt lock. Each classroom had on and off light switch labeled fire alarm. The system did not connect to fire station but was used as an alert within the school. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones.
Up until now, there has been no clear-cut, irrefutable evidence available to the public. But now, finally, the public has smoking gun evidence of pedophile kidnapping, abuse rings operated by a U.S. government intelligence agency. These official U.S. Customs investigation reports are irrefutable evidence of 1. A case of obvious child neglect and abuse involving child pedophile sexual abuse and child pornography and satanic cult ritual abuse, wherein the perpetrators were caught directly in the act by law enforcement, arrested on the basis of irrefutable evidence at the scene, and faced serious charges which typically bring sentences of decades in prison. 2. Whereas search warrants were obtained for the Finders Cult office in Washington, D.C., and a complete search was enacted by law enforcement which provided irrefutable pictures, movies, and documents of such above abuse and neglect, and evidence of access to the confidential arrest reports on the Finders Cult from the arrests in Tallahassee, which occurred only a day earlier, suggesting very high-level connections to U.S. intelligence agencies in and of itself. 3. Whereas all investigation of the Finders Cult by the FBI, U.S. Customs, and local law enforcement was ordered stopped by the U.S. Justice Department on grounds of national security, and the matter of the Finders Cult was turned over to the Central Intelligence Agency as an internal security matter, since the Finders is and has been a domestic and international covert operation of the Central Intelligence Agency. 4. Whereas any and all investigation of the Finders Cult was immediately stopped, all evidence was suppressed and denied, the abused child victims were released back to the adult perpetrators who had been arrested in the act, and the CIA resumed its ongoing covert operation of the Finders Cult, which is used to procure and produce the development of child assets to be used to entrap politicians, diplomats, and corporate and law enforcement officials, to sell such child victims to wealthy perverts to raise money for covert operations, to train some of the child victims to be professional operatives and assassins of a totally cold, multiple personality, mind-controlled nature. This most disgusting perversion perpetrated by our government needs to be exposed.
Where is everybody now? I haven't been able to locate them all, but I found some of them. To be continued. Fucking stoned. And Epstein didn't kill himself.
I got motherfucking spaceship. Oh!